Good afternoon. I'm with Paul McLaughlin today, and we're going to be discussing, a bunch of things related to IT, insurance, architecture, and what makes sense. So Paul McLaughlin is my guest. He's from Blue Cross of North Carolina. I'm Bryce Wominski. I'm a distinguished architect and the Chief Technology Officer for iRangers. Paul, do you want to maybe just add a bit of an introduction to yourself and what you do at Blue Cross North Carolina?
Sure, sure. Good to meet you, Bryce. Good to be with you here. Um, so for myself, I've been a solution architect for a while. um, and at this point, I'm a manager of our solution architecture team at Blue Cross, North Carolina. Um, I originally was having a good time developing the solutions, developing the solution designs, that is, working with lots of stakeholders. It got to the point where if I was going to keep making an impact and working with our team, I needed to go over to the dark side and become a team lead, and then that's progressed from there for the last few years. North Carolina Blue Cross. If you're familiar, the Blues are an association. We have different Blues for different parts of the country. There's 30 something of us at this point. And there's some nice reciprocal relationships that happen there. But one of the things we also do is we try to develop new and better ways of doing things. And that's kind of one of the things I'm hoping to do with our ISO working group as well. Exchange ideas and improve each other's practice.
Well, let's get right into that. That's actually a great point. So we kind of met on the ISO insurance working group. And if you're listening to this and you want to get more involved, that's certainly a working group that I would encourage you to reach out to. You can inbox me or inbox Paul. But I think the question is that a lot of people are going to say, why would I join a working group like that? So let me ask you, Paul, what do you think you're going to get out of that working group? Like, why are you there?
Well, for myself, we've had a few experiences lately where we've discovered that who knew we're a little bit better than average. We've been going along for many years now, just trying to do what's right and make a good impact, and I think it's beginning to show. And I'm at the point where I'm looking for more ideas on where to go next to improve our practice. We have a lot of customers that depend on us doing this well. I mean, literally, they're my neighbors, and if we don't do a good job, I'm letting down people I know.
Well, that's a great point, Paul. So what do you think we can share in this group? I know we had a little bit of a discussion. We were talking about the idea of sharing stories is one level that we can share stuff at. Another that some people look to is, do you have frameworks that you can share? Is that even valuable? I don't know. I'm going to sort of question whether that's valuable because there's so much difference. I really like the idea of sharing stories and lessons learned. Where do you fit on that spectrum?
It's going to be along the sharing the stories more. There are lots of frameworks that already exist. There is a lot of generic architecture information you can get. We can all look up standard patterns and things like that. You don't need another group to show you that. We can all get information on this emerging technology. We don't need another group for that. But I do need to swap stories with people who are facing very similar problems. Pick their brains, let them pick my brain. It's going to go both ways, and use that as a way of developing some new ideas for my own shop. Certainly in there somewhere will be these opportunities where we bottle something up, and maybe I hate to predict at this point, maybe there will be a framework that emerges, okay, or something, a reference architecture. I guess it'd be disappointing if none of that happened. But
one of the things though, Paul, if we're going to talk about this group and using it and leveraging it, I think there's a discussion that has to be had around how do I share something when maybe other companies are at different levels of maturity. And I mean, I know you've gone through quite a journey at Blue Cross and maturing, and maybe we can talk, let's talk to that maybe and then revisit that so that we can look at how somebody coming into the group might leverage from different people at different levels on that. So right now, how would you characterize your maturity? I think you've come a long way. I mean, it sounds like you've got some really good integration governance stuff. I mean, we talked about talk and decision making. So I'll start there. But how did you get there? What were your challenges?
Okay, sure. So I'll roll the story back well over 10, 15 years, where other people before my time laid the groundwork for establishing an architecture practice. The appropriate key leaders in upper management supported it, and we we began to earn the value recognition of what we could offer. In recent years, since I've been with the company almost 10 years, the group has doubled and tripled in size because of the demand for the kinds of things we can do to help our different initiatives succeed.
Two questions.
Broad perspectives. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to sort of go into two things that are really interesting. In that whole time before you came on board to now, has there a lot of organizations go through a challenge where enterprise architecture, solution architecture needs to demonstrate its worth and its value?
Yeah.
Did you have a period like that at all?
We've had mixed success.
Okay.
There are I've seen people where the architect shows up at the working meeting, the design meeting, and everybody says, "Oh, good, the architect is here," because they're expecting this person to bring perspectives that they lack, an understanding of the technology, understanding of strategy, understanding of the standards, and so on, that will help them move forward. They're expecting this person to bring just battle scars of what works and what doesn't work, to help the project work well and have fewer hiccups. Every so often, we've had the situation where the architect shows up and people go, let's see if we can, not have this person around. And that's more and more. That's a one-off. That's the exception to the rule. And we've had to study. Why do we get that kind of reaction? And it's usually along the lines of coming in and not paying attention to the value that needs to be delivered. So as a group, we've been coaching ourselves, but also our own individuals on how to really drive to add the value, ask the questions. Don't just come in and say, "All right, you want me to make a diagram? Sure, I'll knock out a diagram for you." Come in and actually consult and help them think through how to do better.
And you're hitting a really key point that I think as a company matures, the architects move from being order takers.
Yep. Would you like
more of an interactive world? Let's comment on that. Let's get into that.
Yeah. So we've it's a practice. Most of our people have all of our people have the background to advise on many areas at once. And this is where architects come from. They've all started off as, for example, software developers, and they started understanding database and security and infrastructure and cloud and integration. And before they know it, one day they wake up and they're architects. So they have this broad perspective. If they hold that to themselves and just say, "Okay, I'm going to do the thing you're asking me to, and I'm not going to share my experience with you," then you're really only hitting a fraction of the value that you could be hitting. If you then turn that around, though, and leverage the fact that you have this background, and meet the people where they need you, then that's a huge big advantage. We really want to be consultants and not those order takers. To that end, there's lots of resources out there that you can go after. We picked up one. We did a workshop to train our folks up to a sort of baseline on consulting skills, and we continually refresh on that, because that's one of the biggest differences we can make.
One of the hardest things to do, I think, when you go from being the order taker to being actively involved in the dialogue, is understanding what levels of decisions you're empowered to make. And what you can look at with somebody. I think that's one aspect. And then but I'd like to explore that. And then I want to dig into another part, which is understanding what the technology does and whether or not somebody needs to really understand, maybe even at a deep level, what's possible, what isn't, how to implement it, and then change that to a business metaphor or language for your stakeholders. But let's start with the decision making, because I think that all comes together. And one of the things we talked about is enabling the right people to make the right decisions
Yeah.
and the right policies. So I'm trying to be careful here because I know you might throw this back at me, Paul. Well, let me ask, what was your journey like in terms of the decisions? Like, what kind of decisions do you sort of leave with the architects versus what decisions do you absolutely say have to go up the chain to the C-suite?
Okay. The decisions that we need to take up to the C-suite, or at least up to our chief technology officer, there was a C there, right? These are the ones that are going to have a major financial impact on the company. There's a lot of things we can get away with that don't have that much financial impact, and I mean, it's going to be how do we operationally
And when you say
make
financial
one change
impact,
or the other.
when you say financial impact, you're talking more than return on investment. I'm assuming there might be risk discussions,
Yep.
exposures. It's a
Yep.
broad ranging set of discussions, right?
That's right. That's right. Anytime we're going to adopt a new technology or a new vendor, we will at some point clear that with the CTO. He has the final approval on these things. Now that said, he has worked with us. So again, here we have some leadership at the appropriate level. He's worked with us to develop the practices so that by the time it gets to him, it's already well thought out. He is not sitting there in a position of having to ask us to go back time and again to answer more questions, develop a clearer picture, consider the other options, because by the time it's gotten to him, the group in general has already considered these things. And there have been a lot of missteps here. You know, we've had a lot of cases where we didn't even realize we should include that stakeholder. And we're trying to learn this, right? So now we include it. We know how to include the right stakeholders better. Have we got that perfectly? I'll never gonna say yes.
I don't think you ever get that down perfect. I think there's always room for improvement or somebody that we missed or something, right?
That's it. But at this point, we provide people a template, the kinds of details they need to pull together, directions on whom to consult, how to streamline that so that you don't wear people out with stuff that they don't need to be consulted on. And then we do get the basic approvals by these key stakeholders, and then gets to our CTO, and he can react on it.
So typically, when you're going into the CTO, then it sounds like you're giving him something like a series of options, probably what the impact is. Yep. Maybe a recommendation, so that he's very well equipped, and they're probably presented at that level. What I'm guessing, right?
Right. And truth is, we have the options, and we're saying, you know, here's option 1, 2, and 3. We recommend this for these compelling reasons. He can look at it and he can see that it's been well thought out. So even though we are going to the CTO for all of these, not that we do a new technology every other day, but you know what, he's able to see that it's well prepared. He is the safety net, though. He will ask us to. I mean, he thinks about these carefully. Okay, he doesn't just rubber stamp anything, but he's looking for us. He's looking for evidence that we have thought things through carefully. We've accounted for the right strategic questions. We've accounted for the right financial impacts. Make sure we're not going to break something else. Make sure we're not messing up somebody else's part of the business. There is the overall strategic perspective to be had.
Yes.
What's nice is that he doesn't represent just one pocket of the business. His responsibility is the overall enterprise of the overall architecture of the enterprise. So we have some great autonomy in that.
Well, what I'm really loving about what you're saying, what I get is that when you go to him, he's actually looking at what you're telling him, and it sounds like there's another benefit to, and I, kind of have a place in my heart for CTOs, by the way. It sounds like he's listening to his team and building trust with them, that
Yes,
there's a two-way thing there.
that's
Um,
right. And one more aspect of the two ways that we're continually trying to improve the process.
yeah,
We will, if nothing else, he serves as a safety net, way better than that, right? Um, but we'll go through, and if we say we had a rocky experience with one of the decisions, okay, we think about how to make it not rocky next time. Thankfully, we haven't had any substantial misses with this process. Now, I've just told you about the ones where we take it to the CTO. There's a lot of other decisions that he doesn't need to be consulted. He doesn't want to be consulted in every single
yep,
molecular decision that we make. So there's a lot of incremental design decisions as we are delivering the value to the business, where we are putting together the decisions we've already approved and the strategy we've already approved, so that we can now deliver the value over and over again for improving functionality. Does that make sense?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the other end of the scale, I mean, to me, an example might be something like, um, I don't know, I'm just trying to think of something here, but you actually have an application and you're making a change to it, whether you should undo have an undo button or something on there. And you got engineers at the front end and they're talking about the implications of how to do it, maybe looking at different patterns.
Mhm.
What do we do? Do we do like sort of how do we reverse this transaction? What are we going to use an epic in here? How do we do that? What does it mean, right? And I think there's a level that you don't need to engage the C-suite, if I hear you right,
That's
but you can
exactly right.
empower people. Yeah, but
That's right.
yeah,
So of
yeah,
all the
yeah,
work that we're doing,
yeah,
we have a small army of people doing the operational execution of the strategy and the projects. We
yeah.
have a smaller group of people developing strategy and introducing technologies and vendors. At that end, we want to get more oversight on that because that's going to have a lot of leverage.
Yeah.
The other end, we just need to help that run as quickly as possible um, with the appropriate people contributing. Um, I have a saying, we have 30 solution architects. They're all great, but nobody knows everything about everything. We are constantly having to lean on each other for expertise in the stuff that's outside my focus area. And so that shows because it does come together, and we often have those moments where people will quiz each other on, did you think about that? Did you know this? Did you know that? Did you know the application's about to get sunset next month? That kind of thing. So it
How
really
have you
helps.
seen, this is really interesting to me now, as you matured and you pushed the decision making more to the sort of, well, when you push the lower level decisions, I use that term sort of sparingly, but the more customer facing decisions maybe is a better term, to the groups that deal with them directly. How have you seen, or have you seen yourself change from a project organization to more of a product focus?
Oh, that's I like that. So this is the so I'm going to call project and product thinking in terms of our own software systems. Okay, just to be clear, I think in previous conversations we've talked about, well, what do you mean by product?
Yep,
So just to be clear, we're not
perfect. That
talking
makes
about it.
sense.
Yeah, we're not talking about a product like Salesforce. Hey, we've got a thing you can come by and use Blue Cross North Carolina's turnkey solution for the whatever business capability you look for. We're not talking about one of those. Um, in our shop, we really do have a thing called a product, which is a medical insurance product. You can get a benefits package that covers these things. Okay, we're not talking about that either. Okay, but we are now thinking in terms of the architecture and the systems in our world. We are thinking about moving more of these from being project based to being product based. So we have much of our value and things that we're adding as a company, it's coming through projects. And we've changed the name, we're calling them initiatives now. Okay. But they're still very much like waterfall project efforts.
Yeah.
and they go through a whole organizational and funding process and whatnot. The in a few other in a few major areas of the company, we've started taking key systems and setting them up as product teams. So we have a member portal, for example, and instead of having 1,000 projects coming at it to do this and do that and to improve the
Yep.
member portal, the functionality there, and deliver new ideas there. They've turned it into a standing team with a set of sprints and planning increments that they go through to manage this. So now what you might have packaged up as a set of requirements into a project that you then execute as a waterfall, that same set of requirements and needs is getting expressed in terms of epics and stories, and then they manage it more as a product team, a more stable product team that is
Do you
going
find
to.
the product team is more cross-functional and it involves more business stakeholder input than the project approach, or is it the same from you guys' point of view?
I think it's going to need the same involvement, but to me, I think one of the big distinctions is the staying power. So whereas with the project, you may be constantly starting and stopping your relationship, in the continuous delivery team, product team, they have this sustained ongoing relationship. So the key business program owner is going to be working hand in hand with the IT leadership and the IT teams and so on for an extended period of time. Very much like you would expect in a classic agile environment where you have a product owner, agile speak, with the Scrum Master and the Scrum team and so on.
When you're talking about this, one of the benefits I'm thinking is there, and I just kind of want to get your thoughts, is that with the product approach, there's an opportunity to focus more on ongoing learning and what we see from our customer base. It's released and there's input. Somebody takes that back and turns it around. Versus with a project approach, you're very, here's the scope. I've got to deliver.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Right. And we're at, I'm not sure this is exactly what you're asking, but we are seeing doors opening up for a couple types of improvements that would not naturally happen in the project waterfall world. We're seeing more opportunities where the product team can set aside bandwidth to do some improvement efforts. We've been needing to update the underlying technology for this aspect for years now, and we never get a chance to do it. They can now make the case and then go say, we're going to upgrade this thing. It was always a big act of Congress to get time to do that in the past. You would need a whole project set aside, and who's going to fund that thing? So we see that kind of benefit. We're also, because of these extended relationships, we're seeing better opportunities to influence some of the ideas that are coming through. So, for example, we've had one engagement recently where the architect was able to work with the IT leadership and the business leadership to develop an idea and bring it forward as a way of improving a basic feature that we have. In more general terms, it's the business doesn't always know all the things they could be asking for. And now coming circle back to the consulting idea, this is the consultant saying, did you know that you could have this feature if you express, I know that you have these values, you would like to do this kind of thing. If you approached it this way, you might get better results.
So is that an example where your architect, just gonna put this out, is that an example where it's useful for your architect to understand the inner workings and how the code is going, what it can and can't do, and how the data fits in and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's not uniquely that, it's not only that. And let me say up front, the architect is not uniquely in the only one position that can do this. You know, many people can, but architects often find themselves with that broad perspective to pull together many threads in many directions at the same time. Thankfully, we have other people that also see many of these threads, you know. Anyway, I don't mean to minimize that on either end. Yeah, so when this is working at its best, the architect has this deep, lasting understanding of how the system is working, and depending upon the system, he may be in there coding elbow to elbow with the developers, to try out the new thing, to figure out the new technique, to establish the software pattern that's going to work for doing this new thing. It's a new technology. Nobody knows how to do this yet. Let's reduce it practice. Other areas, it's we have other areas where we have a more of a vendor service engagement. We still want the architect to be tuned into what that vendor does.
Makes sense.
You know, it's the exact same problem. It's just that the vendor's product is still maybe a bit of a black box, but the architect's going to have that, again, that lasting relationship on what does this vendor do that's unique and special.
And that's actually one of the big areas I think that's unique to insurance, is a lot of times you're going to have a large insurance package. I don't know, who it is, Guidewire, Duck Creek, whoever. But the point is, there's going to be people that know what makes sense, what the best practices are there at a really deep level. And those people probably aren't in your organization. They're probably the system integrators, at least at some point, until you get to know the package. And so I like the way that it sounds that you're managing that input and transferring that wisdom and technology to your team.
Yeah.
So in terms of, let's go back to where we started this thing. I think ISA Global Insurance Working Group, from what I'm seeing, there's a lot of benefits to coming on board. You're doing something at a high level, seeing what other people are doing is one area, like the decisions from strategy, right down to understanding that match between technologies, where they're going, and maybe talking to different organizations at different levels of maturity, or that have tried different things, maybe is a better way to put it.
Yeah, that's it. If you talk to me about engaging in something like this 10 years ago, I would say we clearly have a lot to learn, and we have no idea how good we are. And we would have engaged, I think, and discovered that we're doing several things well, and we would get ideas on several more things to go to next. Maybe we would have many of those ideas on our own anyway. Clearly, we did have a lot of good ideas, but in truth, many of the ideas that we've had over the last several years have been the result of people synthesizing ideas from outside. Okay.
Well, and another thing I'll share is, I went into one of the insurance working groups with some ideas. I won't get into them, but it was like, well, a couple of the people that were there had looked at them and they weren't really the best way to go. And hearing that fast, and that somebody else has some experiences, saved me a lot of time, right?
Yeah, that's it. I'll go back to I was talking about the work experience that most of our architects bring. They've been through this before. They're not early in their career. They've been around doing these efforts for a while. And so when they show up in that project meeting and the people say, "Oh, good, the architect is here," that's what we're looking for. Okay, we're looking for that. Now I'm looking for that experience, kind of at the broader level, where in the case of the project, the architect is coming in and he has this practical experience on what's going to work and good questions to ask and risks to look into and things like that. I'm looking for my own benefit. I am still looking for ways to catch that. Do I have blind spots? Do I have areas where you're doing something really smoothly, and that's the thing we've been struggling with, for example. Can we talk it through? Even if you don't have all the answers, can you ask me good questions?
Good questions.
it's going to be so important to me, and I'm just speaking selfishly now. It's going to be so important to me to be able to call it networking if you want. It's going to be important for me to have that exchange with people that are not so close to the problem.
You hit something really close to my heart, asking the right question. And a lot of times I've seen I've been in that situation, and the question I was asking wasn't really the right one. And when you talk to the people that have been there, you often get that different mindset that, oh, this is another way to look at it. Maybe I can ask it this way.
Yeah, that's right. Totally agree, Bryce.
Paul, this has really been exciting. I've really enjoyed our discussion. Thank you so much. Is there any last comments?
Well, I'm sure there are. I will say that in recent years, we've had experiences of knowing we had places to grow, working on those things, benefiting from the experience of others to do a lot of growth. Somewhere in there, we, much to our surprise, we started winning some awards. Okay, and I thought, and I don't say that to toot our horn, although there is, I enjoy doing that. I say that because when we realized that we were ahead, and I would say this to other people that you feel like, you may be ahead. When we realized that we were doing a good job, that was a real shot in the arm. That was a real boost for doing more of what we were already doing well. So my message to anybody who may hear this, whether you think you're at the beginning of a journey or you have arrived, I think there's going to be something in there to gain. And if you have nothing to gain, hopefully at least you have something that you can offer, and and that would be also valuable.
Paul, that's excellent. I'm with Paul McLaughlin. I'm Bryce Ominski. If you get a chance, reach out to us and connect on LinkedIn. It would be great if you want to join our ISA insurance group. We'd love to see you there. I've really enjoyed this. Thank you so much, Paul.
Yeah, Cheers. Sure thing. Thank you, Bryce.